Welcome to Data, Dollars, and Dynasty, the podcast where data meets destiny. 3 voices, 1 mission, using data to build a dynasty. Up next.
Women are decision makers. They're leaders. They're visionaries. They guide families. They shape cultures. And they influence markets. They're oftentimes being left behind in tech, especially AI.
Plus,
I want to tell all women, I don't want you to make excuse of not learning AI. Just learn it. Do not build excuses for yourself. Explore it. See how it works. Compete with it.
now welcoming your hosts, Jeremy Sr., JJ, and Jayden.
Welcome to the 8th edition of Data, Dollars, Dynasty. I'm your host, Jeremy Williams Sr. I have on the podcast with me today my co-host, JJ Williams.
Welcome back, everybody.
Jayden Williams.
What's going on, everyone?
And today we have a special guest. Her name is Walaa Jasim. She is COO of SaNDAI Cares, our nonprofit. And Walaa actually helps lead a key division of SaNDAI Cares, or a key program of SaNDAI Cares called DataGen For Her. Walaa, you want to say a couple of things about yourself before we jump into today's podcast?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here today. My name is Walaa Jasim. I am the COO of SaNDAI Cares. I was born in Baghdad, Iraq, and I'm a U.S. citizen. I wear different hats, as Jeremy just mentioned, lead the DataGen For Her program. I'm the core of this program, and I am the program manager in ASRC Federal. And this side is basically working with the government. It's with the State Department in the diplomacy technology side of the house. I'm very much passionate about women empowerment, and with that, I joined this fantastic nonprofit organization because of their passion about empowerment people in general. And for me, empowering women. Thank you for having me again.
Absolutely. So yeah, today we're going to have a pretty amazing discussion. I think it's a discussion we teed off probably 2 podcasts ago. I talked about the introduction of this new program at our nonprofit level, DataGen For Her. And I think the title of that basically details out what that program is about. We've talked probably about 3 of our 7 podcasts so far about a program called DataGen Scholar. It's a 12-month training program where we essentially upskill high school students across the globe and teach them how to leverage data analytics, data literacy, as well as AI fundamentals, and also how to leverage generative AI technologies to get prepared for tomorrow's workforce. Those students are male and female and span from across the globe. What we've been noticing, we've been doing some research for about 6-7 months now and just paying attention to different trends that we've observed across the airways. We've noticed that there's been really lax attention to how women are leveraging these technologies. We do have some content to share that's going to spill some light on why we feel the way we feel, but we ultimately think that there needs to be a more concerted effort to figure out a way to get women exposed to these technologies. Now, we talk about generative AI. We haven't in previous podcasts talked about what that really is, and we may like to do so in a future podcast, but we're not saying that women don't use technology. Okay. Think about AI. Some AI systems are embedded in our everyday applications. So you think about your cell phone, maybe you're driving a Tesla, right? So if you think about purchases of those types of applications or tools, cars and phones, women are probably right there in equivalent demand. So they're using the technology. The technology we're talking about is called generative AI. And this is a tool that is really a productivity tool that, if used appropriately, we think it can bridge inequalities across the globe. We think that it can cure all matters of causes or issues across the globe if everybody essentially knows how to leverage it. And what we're seeing on our end from our research, just observations. I wouldn't necessarily say our research because we haven't done any surveys, but from our observations, we've noticed that women apparently don't seem interested in these tools. The DataGen Scholars Program, I think remarkably, we see a lot of young high school ladies interested in it, but at the workforce level, if you will, a professional level, we're seeing that when we talk about these tools often to more mature women, they oftentimes are clueless what we're talking about. So what we've done is we've created a separate program. It's called DataGen For Her again. And this program is a microcosm of our DataGen Scholar program. It's just reduced. You want to call it a accelerated version of our DataGen Scholar program, in that it's offered over a 6-week time period. And the content that we are essentially teaching women and men, if men want to join the program, relate to data literacy, AI fundamentals, generative AI, and AI ethics, right? So each applicant or each participant in that program has an opportunity to get a couple of certificates, and data literacy certificate, an AI fundamental certificate, and then they're exposed to 10 to 12 generative AI tools that we think everybody should know how to use, okay? And we may spend some time talking about those tools at a high level towards the end of this podcast, but for purposes of moving the discussion along, just understand that we have those 10 to 12 tools in there that everybody should know how to use. And then we have this last component on ethics. Ethics piece is huge. Again, I've inferred over a previous podcast, when I think about the ethics part as it relates to AI, it's akin to having a car and not necessarily knowing how to drive that car, not having a rule book, if you will. And so we see the ethics part being key in helping people understand the care they have to take and utilize when they get access to these different generative AI tools, just because of the power that it presents to persuade. Before we jump into the discussion, I want to spend some time talking about data. So when you think about women in tech, okay, this is just overall. You think about the progress that we've made in terms of women in the workforce. I think it's significant participation at all levels of workforce. So whether you think about blue collar jobs or white collar jobs, women have made tremendous strides. This is across the globe in those departments. Now, of course, depending upon what country you're in, those strides might be less significant than they may be in more developed nations. But mostly across the globe, we've seen progress in women in the workplace. Now, the area that remains underrepresented for women is the area of technology and AI, okay? So when we think about DataGen For Her, we're just trying to come in and offer a program that could potentially help get underrepresented women, if you will, into these fields, again, technology and AI. So we think about professionals. This is globally now. Only 22% of AI professionals are women. So just give that some thought, 22%. When you think about jobs, this is specific to the US. So we think about STEM jobs. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. Of course, I tend to advocate for it to be called STEAM, science, technology, engineering, analytics, and math, because of that data component that we think is so relevant today. But for STEM jobs, only 35% of STEM jobs in the US are held by women. And this stands out because if you think about it, it's probably a 50-50 split in terms of population, men and women. So globally, it's about 50% of the global population of 8 billion people are women. And domestically here in the US, 350 million people, half of those people are women, okay, approximately. But when you look at only 35% of the jobs in STEM being held, then that shows an area of concern. Only 16% of engineers in the US are women. Those numbers still, to me, remain paltry, right? They still remain paltry. 16% of all engineers in the US are women, okay? And then last but not least is this thing called confidence gap, okay? Confidence gap. So when you survey girls we think about them going off to college and pursuing future careers. These are based on different studies now. 58% of girls believe they are not smart enough for STEM careers. So it's just this confidence thing, right? So then we talked about maybe our third podcast, I believe it was. We talked about the importance of parents really instilling in their kids what their genius is and really helping those kids unearth their genius, right? That's where we think parents own the ability to really set this table, okay? We think parents own this ability to ensure that tomorrow's workforce, that these numbers look differently, right? We don't want to have 22% of AI professionals being women. We don't want to have only 35% of STEM jobs in the US being held by women. We don't want to only have 16% of engineers in the US being women, right? So that's where parents come in, really helping their young daughters and sons too now. So we don't leave the sons out, but helping their young daughters understand the importance of STEM and women having a voice there. So again, these are some of the motivations behind our DataGen For Her program. We had a significant win this week as a result of this DataGen For Her program. We started this program up about 2 months ago. Okay, we started up, we've had a couple of trainings here in Fairfax, and those trainings lasted about a couple of hours, and we presented the program to 75 women. And from that presentation, we got about 25 women to actually purchase the program and start that journey with us. We also did some social media. So I think I talked maybe a couple podcasts ago about us starting up our social media ads campaign. One of the things that Walaa did when she first started this program up, she decided to start tinkering with some ads or different reels, if you will, ad reels. I believe it was on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. So we did a couple of trainings. We took some of the pictures from the training, some videos from the training, and we made some reels on social media, and we put a little money behind it just to see what kind of attention it would garner. And surprisingly, we got a boatload of views from our content, from this content that she generated, right? And I think we got about 700,000 views, okay? Now, we noticed that location mattered in terms of where those viewerships occurred. We probably dedicated 75% of our ad spend budget to the Middle East. Around the clock, we were seeing people from the Middle East looking at our site. Around the clock. It was continuous over about 6-7 days. And then we have this app called Live Chat on all of our websites so we can see who's coming to our website. And it was literally every 3-4 minutes, somebody was looking at our site, okay? We noticed that trend from the US, we noticed that trend from Europe, but the interest in what we were talking about in those reels was significant. It was significant. So we knew minimally that women are interested in this empowerment, this ability to learn quickly and affordably. So something else came out of that. So we got 25 people to buy into the program, but we also were, I think I mentioned in a prior podcast, that we were also contacted by several embassies, right? So this past Tuesday, we had an opportunity to basically go in and meet with the ambassador of Iraq about our DataGen For Her program. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about the outcome of that discussion, but that discussion has put us in a position to further our work with that ambassador and his embassy and potentially the country of Iraq in terms of upskilling people and helping people understand how to use these tools. And we think that that experience is going to catapult us into other possibilities with embassies in other countries.
Now, for a quick commercial break to share some key program insights.
DataGen For Her is reshaping how women enter and thrive in the world of data and artificial intelligence. This reimagined experience helps women gain real-world AI skills, build confidence, and apply technology to real-world challenges. Learn more at datagenforher.com.
Now back to the podcast.
So that said, I want to now jump into a couple different areas. I want to go to this article that came out yesterday relating to jobs. In prior podcasts, we've talked considerably about jobs being displaced, people being terminated. We think a lot of this has to do with the coming of AI and what AI has the potential to do for employers. So I want to spend some time talking about these more recent jobs, and then we'll cover some statistics there, some stats there. And then we're going to move over into, again, a report or a study that was conducted by Harvard Business School on women not using generative AI. JJ, you want to take the opportunity to talk about this job data?
Definitely. All right, everybody. With us being in a new month now, the new job report data for this previous month has been released by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So every month, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they release the previous month's job report data. All right. And to say in short, the data for this previous month is quite disheartening, to say the least. But essentially, for the month of July, only about 73,000 jobs were added for this month. I believe estimates projected to be around 200,000. Again, only 73,000 jobs were added for the month of July in the U.S. All right. Now, if that wasn't disheartening enough, the estimates for the jobs that were added for May and June were also revised. So previously, before this most recent report came out for July, previously the estimates for May and how many jobs were added for that month stood at about 144,000. All right. As of recently, this amount has been revised down to just 19,000. So it has been cut by 125,000. That is a lot, to say the least. And similarly for June, the same thing. Previous estimates had it at being around 147,000 jobs added for the month of June alone. This has now been slashed by 133,000 to just 14,000. So only 14,000 jobs were added across the nation for the month of June. And if that, again, isn't enough, that low amount for June has been the lowest our nation has seen since December of 2020. All right, that is extremely low. And again, like Jeremy Sr. just said, a lot of people are contributing this to AI. Some people might bring in tariffs. I know we're probably not going to dive too much into that, but these numbers are very low. And if anybody is out there that's looking to get a job and they're currently unemployed, these numbers aren't the best. I mean, it is disheartening.
Yeah, and I would just say too, so these numbers, this is the Bureau of Labor Statistics, right? So this is a government agency, and government agencies suffer from small budgets. Obviously, technology that they use to gather their data may not be the most advanced or sophisticated. So it's potential these numbers could be slightly higher. Right? I don't know how they basically inquire about who is hired and who is firing across all businesses in America and all government agencies and all employers, if you will. But these numbers are indicative of where we're headed. So I'm looking at a graph. This is a 12-month graph I'm looking at from this article. And jobs are all over the place. But you're right. The aggregate of these last 3 months, we aggregate these totals, looking at about 100,000 jobs added. Right? If you go back to December, it was 300,000 plus added. 100,000 added every month since November of 2024. At least 100,000 jobs were added every month since 2024. The last 3 months of this year so far, 100,000 total. So again, we think, as we've said in previous podcasts, that companies now are rethinking how they hire. They're rethinking it. And then a lot of this stuff has to do with this curiosity around generative AI. So we think that this right here shows exactly why programs like, again, DataGen For Her are so needed. Now, here's the thing about this report that I think stood out to me. But when you look at that 73,000 jobs, it's concentrated into one sector. Right? I talked a while ago about blue-collar jobs, right? These jobs that enable you to be in positions where you're proximate to people. That's how I think about blue-collar. You're basically being paid for labor, okay, where you're serving the masses, if you will. Looks like all of these jobs were attributable to healthcare and social assistance. And as I read this article, it said that typically we look at these jobs data month to month. It's bolstered by 3 different industry classifications. You got state and local government, you got hospitality and leisure, and you have healthcare and social assistance. And those 3, it's like a 3-legged stool. Those numbers tend to bolster or hold firm our jobs data month to month. What's concerning to a lot of these economists is that this month, all of those jobs were attributable to healthcare and social assistance. So it's been a tremendous drop off in hospitality and leisure. And it's been a tremendous drop off. I think it was like 5,000 jobs added, believe, in hospitality and leisure, and about 2,000 added on state and local payrolls. And you guys remember it's probably 3 podcasts ago, I talked about the effects of the federal government reducing its budget spend, right? We talked about that, certain programs being terminated. We talked about cities, quote unquote, going under. We talked about a win that we got with the state of Virginia to go out and look at insolvent cities. Okay? This right here shows, and what we're saying is correct. Cities aren't hiring because their budgets are dwindling. They're also nervous about tariffs. Okay? And then lastly, when you're unable to hire, it really forces you to find other means to get the services you need, right? To satisfy local constituent needs.
Yep.
So I think we're going to see more cities looking at ways to leverage these technologies. And once this technology is deployed, what's the reason to undeploy it? So we just think the way things are headed is going to put additional heat on all of us, particularly the ones who want to remain in the workforce, okay, to get upskilled and to start learning these technologies. All right, let's shift gears. Let's go over to this Harvard article. Jayden, you want to take the lead on that?
Yeah, sure. So everyone, we found a paper discussing the pervasive problem we are facing concerning women adopting generative AI tools at lower rates than men in the workplace. The paper, which is titled Global Evidence on Gender Gaps in Generative AI, was published by the Harvard Business School, and it takes a look at AI adoption rates across genders in 18 different studies, all done between late 2022 and mid 2024. So collectively, the study surveyed more than 140,000 college students and workers across various industries and countries, with almost all of those studies showing the number of women adopting AI was between 10 to 40% less than the number of men. Only one of those 18 studies showed women are only 3% more likely to use AI in the workplace when compared to men, because the survey was given to tech workers in the San Francisco area, which basically shows that women in tech are more open to using these tools and they're more comfortable using them. But as Jeremy Sr. said earlier, women are underrepresented in the tech and STEM fields. So overall, we are seeing a lower adoption rate will lead to increased rates of job disruption for women and also increased AI model bias due to less data being given from women overall.
And just to add to what Jayden was mentioning about this gap, a couple of the reasons I was reading in Harvard study is there's 2 factors into that. One of it is women are not aware, as Jeremy Sr. was mentioning, of the generative AI. The other one is the access as well. Now, I can tell you from experience, I wasn't aware most of the generative AI tools except for ChatGPT until I met Jeremy Williams Sr. and Jr. And then they showed me that time a flyer talking about different tools. What turned my head is next to each tool, they have the functionality of this tool. For example, image, text, video. In my head, I did not understand that. So first is awareness. We are not aware of it because, as Jeremy Sr. was mentioning, it's tech in general for women is not something we are attracted to. So we're not going to be aware of it. Second is access. That's the second thing. Women have less access to tech because they are not curious about it. Even though, based on the same Harvard study in Kenya, they did this study when they give same exact access to women and men for AI tools, but yet there's 13% women using it less than a man, even after this access.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing I can tell you here, it's most about women think it's cheating to use AI. They think it's unethical to use AI. Our idea behind DataGen For Her, as Jeremy was mentioning, is to provide a safe environment for women not to be judged. Come and learn about generative AI, experience it, right? So so imagine most of those women right now, the 25 women that we have in our program, I will say 85% of them were not even aware of how to use generative AI and what is the functionality of those tools. right? They don't even know how to use it. What is functionality? What does it mean? What does generative AI mean? Every woman will need the same help to be advanced.
Yeah.
And this data was gathered for this Harvard study. It was gathered over a 2-year period, right? So that's 2022 when ChatGPT came out around November, October 2022, and it was over a 2-year period, right?
Yeah, May
Right.
2024 is when it ended.
Right. So that means that these observations happen consistently over a period of time. So it's not something that just came out of nowhere. And I also understand that this study was accumulated from 18 other studies, right? So I don't know who those organizations are, but I do understand that people are looking at this issue, okay? And I think that we probably could have assumed that women would not be as attracted to these types of applications just by the nature of technology and how most of us use technology. Like most of us just use it. We don't think about how to use it appropriately, why to use it, how it makes us better. We just use it, right? Think about phones. I talked about cars earlier. These are cars that just self-drive, right? So a lot of us just get in and we just want things to be turnkey. And here's where I think there's a greater dilemma for all of us, particularly the ones who are in the know, is how do you get people inspired to be curious, to start tinkering with these tools? I think a lot of it just boils down to that. A lot of us aren't compelled or even enthused to take that extra step just to learn, open up a book. There's a saying that goes, you want to keep a secret from some people, put it in a book. In this case, it could be put in a manual, right? So I think a lot of us are going to fall victim to some of the stuff that's pointed out in this Harvard study. I like the fact that they're focusing specifically on ladies. It's because of the importance of women in the workforce and women in families. But I think it says to me that there has to be a different way for us to sound the alarm, if you will, to get people curious about these tools.
Yeah, I
Want
went
to say
to
anything else about that article?
Yeah, let me jump into this real quick. So I know we also had that article, but we also found a podcast, right, that was on YouTube that was also uploaded in partnership with Harvard Business School as well as IBL.ai. So just to give you guys a bit of background regarding IBL.ai, it's essentially a AI tech group from what I was able to find after I did my research. And they've partnered with a ton of different prominent universities, right? So Harvard, Stanford, MIT, Berkeley, all of these organizations, they partner with IBL AI to generate, I guess, generative AI content. So in this case, they did a podcast and uploaded it to YouTube. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because they talked about the issue as far as women being 20% less likely than men to use generative AI. They talked about the reasoning, again, what you just said, Mala, being awareness and, of course, other stuff as well. But they also talked about a solution, right? So the main solution they said was basically two things. The first is women need to see more examples of other successful and prominent women using these AI technologies. But then also, we as a globe need to do a better job of creating these programs that specifically teach women about these technologies, right? So again, Walaa, you mentioned giving them space where they can sort of play around and be protected as well as learn from AI experts. So again, I think that definitely ties into our DataGen For Her program, which is why I wanted to bring it up before we did move on.
Fantastic, man. That's IBL, right? Do they have a website?
They do. IBL.ai is where you can learn more about them.
Now, for a quick commercial break to share some key program insights.
Every number tells a story, but only if you know how to read it. At SaNDAI Global, we transform data into direction for small businesses, nonprofits, and enterprise clients alike. Whether it's AI automation, strategic dashboards, or advanced analytics, our solutions redefine what's possible when people and data work together. Learn more at sandaiglobal.net.
Now back to the podcast.
To echo what you just said, I think is a good segue here. So one of the things that we also have decided that we're going to do, and this is, again, based on that social media campaign that we talked about earlier that we offered up for DataGen For Her back in, this would have been maybe early to mid-July. But we had a person from city here in Virginia, Richmond, Virginia, reach out to us to inquire about offering a program in her city. Okay, so she wanted to bring the training program there and introduce the program in her community. So us being us, we said, okay, hey, this might be an idea here. Maybe we can take this and make this into something bigger. So back to what you just said, JJ. You talked about seeing women using it. You talked about also a safe space.
Yes.
So we decided to offer up what we call a community partner program. Okay. So we're in the process now of giving that component of the DataGen For Her program its own identity, if you will. So we'll have a web page up on our site soon, and we're going to go to market with that. We're going to start doing our ads and pushing posts across social media to gen up interest across the globe. And we're going to see if we can get women in different communities to raise their hand. We think that there's probably a great subset of women out there who want to take charge and own the information flow in their communities. And we're going to try to take advantage of that. So that's how we're doing our part with that program. Did you want to add anything to that, Walaa?
Absolutely. The program is for women to partner with us on DataGen For Her to explore this program in all different societies. So we're asking women to come and partner with us and to explore that program with your community. One of the things that comes in with this Harvard study, that AI take data from us. And if only men are feeding data to it, you don't want that. You're going to be the first population impacted by AI, right? So that's why we're calling for partner to expand this DataGen For Her, not only in the United States, but the globe basically. But we're going to start here in the United States and go globally.
Exactly. So we have the 2 sessions set up for Richmond. Again, this is a young lady who reached out to us just from social media. So I can't convey the excitement I have. We're still in the process of getting our social media ad campaigns going. We thought we were going to have it a couple of weeks ago. But as I always say, when we plan, the universe laughs at us. But we're in the process of getting that set up now. And we think that offering this community partner program, where we again have women across America, potentially across the globe, just raising their hands to be that community champion. And I think about it the same way I think about the Mary Kay brand. Right? I'm not sure they still do this. They had these Tupperware parties where you see like a lot of women getting together talking about Tupperware, right? So I see that same kind of concept happening with this DataGen For Her, where you just have a woman raising her hand if she wants to have a workshop or have a party or something at her house to talk about this kinds of things. We want to be there to support her doing so. I think our ideal situation would be like a 2-hour talk where space is reserved somewhere. We show up, we talk about the program, we talk about the why, and we exit the stage, right? But that's what we're gonna do again here starting in September, and we hope to see some tremendous growth there. Before we shift gears and exit this podcast, I want to spend some time on a new revelation this week, okay? Before we jump off of here, I think it would benefit us, and I think benefit the audience to learn about these AI agents. And I know we've been talking about them for about 2 podcasts, but I keep forgetting to talk about them, okay? ChatGPT just introduced an AI agent this week, okay? And I toyed around with it yesterday, all right? I toyed around with this AI agent yesterday. I gave it a couple tasks. Now, this AI agent is meant to emulate a person. Now, last podcast we did is a me using this agent. I talked about where I thought generative AI was really going to affect people's jobs, especially people who are like analysts, right? People who do market research, data entry. Okay, I talked about those people. This was before I used an agent. Yesterday, I had opportunity to use an AI agent that's cheap. It's free, basically. Okay, it's ChatGPT's agent. I gave it about 100 rows of data, a spreadsheet that had 100 rows of data in it. And it had 3 columns of data that need to be completed. It's just basically go out, find these organizations, return to me based on the organization's name, which I provided. Organization's address was in there. But what I was missing was the name of a contact. First name, last name. I was missing the title. I was missing the email address. I was missing the phone number. All right. I asked the AI agent to fill it in. I basically gave it about 7 prompts. I was talking to a human being. 20 minutes later, it gave me about 20, 25 names. I sat there and I watched this thing go through a bunch of sites, right? Just going through the data. And it returned 20 names in a spreadsheet. Then it asked me, it said, I worked 20 minutes. It told me, it said, I worked for 20 minutes. So I said, okay, you hadn't done the whole data set yet. Give me some more. So now I worked for 40 minutes. It returned another 40 names. Okay. So I'm thinking if I had continued this process, I would have had my entire database done probably in 4 hours. And I'm not sure how many sites this thing visited. I'm not sure even if the names are right. I don't know. I have to go in and look at all this stuff eventually. But for anybody who's just doing data entry, where you're going out to internet sites and you're looking through documents and you're just gathering data, I don't know. I just read an article. You guys know who McKinsey is? McKinsey & Company?
I read about them yesterday, but I will let you go from there.
What about you, Jayden? You know who McKinsey is?
Not much. The name is familiar.
All right. McKinsey is probably the top consulting company on the planet. You go to these elite business schools, everybody wants to go to McKinsey & Company. Crazy money. I always say they're like the Goldman Sachs of consulting. If you know who Goldman Sachs is, they're the top bank, not just and all that stuff, investment bank across the globe. But McKinsey is top tier. They like the Harvard of consulting companies, right? So come out of your MBA, you're getting paid well, nicely, all right? I'm reading an article where they're basically saying that a lot of the tasks that they had high-paid analysts and associates, these are 6-figure, 200K plus individuals annually, doing can be done by AI. This is McKinsey. Have to listen. White collar, blue collar, this stuff is coming for you. White collar especially. It's coming for your job. And this stuff don't sleep, man. It doesn't sleep. It works. It clocks in, it clocks out. And what's crazy about this agent to me yesterday, it told me what it did. It's telling me. I gave it the prompts. It said to me, so this is what you need me to do. It repeated it back to me. Then just started. And I'm sitting there watching this thing work real time. And here's the thing. This is what ChatGPT is giving to us. OpenAI is giving this to us. So what are they using? What's the next iteration of this? I'm not saying this is free. I think this is for the pro edition.
That's right.
If this is what we're using now, what is it going to be in 6 months? So data entry jobs, I think their days are limited, man.
Yeah, that market research, you're right. Your market research is,
I just think anything that's going to just grab it off the web and look at the reports, PDFs, things like that. I think we can do this stuff with audits, by the way. I think we can use these agents on audits. If you tell it what to look for specifically. I think that's a possibility. And we're talking about thousands of dollars saved. Okay. So you guys want to talk about that any on the AI agents?
Yeah, like I said, everybody, Jeremy Sr. just mentioned the market research point of things, but you also have that administrative side of things as well. So these AI agents, and I've actually created mine to do this specifically using this tool that I stumbled across, but it can actually access my Gmail account and do anything in my Gmail account once I give it permission. So if I needed to draft an email or reach out to anybody specifically, or put together a spreadsheet and share it with one of my team members, again, using that Google application system, it can do all of that just by the simple command of me putting inside that little prompt box. I even played around with this thing with our CRM as well. So we have a CRM that we use to actually reach out to our customers, our customer relationship management database. And this AI agent can go inside there once I give it credentials. It can add new contact details for potential clients to this CRM directly with me just giving it a list. Now, again, it's not perfect. Like Jeremy Sr. just said, I've been playing around with mine, trying to mesh out the nuances and everything. But once it does get to that point where it's able to do things perfectly, and it's going to be very, very, very dangerous, to say the least.
Jayden, Walaa?
Yeah, I was going to say, just to add on what JJ just said, that also goes back to our study. We were talking about how women are going to be more likely to experience job disruption because women largely populate those communication and administrative roles, right? I was looking at a thing earlier, it said 75% of administrative positions in the U.S. are filled by women. 65% of marketing managers are women. 76% of human resource managers are women. So these roles are largely affected by Gen AI, and those AI agents, like you guys are just talking about, they help with writing emails, creating advertisements, scheduling, all those things that these women will be doing in those roles are already being done by these tools, and it's only getting better and better. So it's more emphasis to just learn this stuff and to get on board with it instead of trying to ignore it, put it to the side for whatever reasons you might have, ethical concerns. We talked about women just not wanting to adopt it because they may not know about the tools or just even feeling like there's inequalities in the workforce because they don't want to take those risks that men might be more willing to take. But again, just more emphasis for them to get into programs like DataGen For Her, learn about these things, and to become more informed.
Yes, sir. And even if you don't want to use it, if it contradicts some creed or belief, you still need to be aware of it. Still should know, how's it go? Keep your friends closer, enemies closer.
That's right.
Yeah,
So
that's it.
I'm not saying AI is an enemy, but it's putting you out of work is your enemy. If it's coming for your job, if it's competing against you, it's trying to take away your livelihood. And that's how you have to think about this. Okay. So you probably want to know what it is, what it can do, what it's capable of, even if you don't want to use it. So minimally, back to this awareness piece, just get in the know. Like you start tinkering with things. Did you want to add anything, Walaa?
I want to tell all women, I don't want you to make excuse of not learning AI. Just learn it. Don't tell me I'm a mom. I am a mom too. I have 2 kids, one of them special need. Don't tell me you have a job. I have 2 jobs. So I'm busy too. And then both jobs are coming with big responsibility. So I make time to learn AI. And don't tell me I'm a single mother. I am a single mother. Don't tell me you are traumatized. I come from war zone. So do not build excuses for yourself and stop yourself from learning AI. Learn it, explore it, see how it works, compete with it. You can. So don't make any excuses. Just wake up and learn and reshape your tomorrow. Just do it. And don't be scared of it.
I have one more quote I wanted to add, everybody, and it's just tagging along with what Walaa just said. And just want you guys to remember that AI isn't just for a special group of people. It's really a tool that has the power to give anybody across the globe, regardless of your economic or financial background, your power to make a difference in this world. Like Walaa just said, use it and learn it if you can.
All right, Walaa, got any concluding thoughts?
I just want to thank you so much for having me again today. And I hope this message goes to all women across the globe. And again, thank you so much for having me.
Now, for a quick commercial break to share some key program insights.
Imagine a world where every student, parent, and professional has access to the tools shaping tomorrow's economy. That's what we're building at SaNDAI Cares, a movement to democratize data and AI education for all. Join us in empowering communities to create, innovate, and lead through technology. Discover how you can get involved at sandaicares.org.
Now back to the podcast.
Absolutely. We're going to have hopefully 1,000+ episodes to this podcast. And we think that DataGen For Her is going to be a global hit. Even just looking at what we have in front of us with the ambassador there of Iraq. So we're looking forward to navigating that opportunity and bringing this program to women across the globe. So in conclusion, I would just say a couple things. Okay, we talked about jobs data here today. The last 12 months aren't necessarily indicative of what the future is going to look like. We think that we are on a down tail of a hiring curve. The trends say that it could be related to tariffs, could also be related to AI. Right, but how we advocate for learning is that we think that everybody at this point in our professional lifetimes, our professional careers, or if you're a young person, you're aspiring to enter the workforce, we think that you have to start taking it upon yourself to start learning daily. These days of getting a degree or getting a certificate and resting on your laurels for a year, 2 years, 3 years without learning, those days are gone. Think that every day this AI is getting empowered. This AI is thirsty every day, every minute of every day. This stuff is learning. This AI is our competitor, okay? And it is probably going to displace most of us. Now, the timetable to that displacement is purely in your hands. It's purely in your hands. If you sit back and you do nothing, when I say nothing, I mean in terms of learning. If you do nothing, there's a high probability that if you're in a white collar job of some type, I don't care if you're as high as a McKinsey & Company, or if you want to call it as low as a data entry person, right? This AI is capable of doing some of your work. And I'm a financial guy. I've been doing financial analytics for 20 years. I've experienced bookkeeping, right? I have experienced data entry. And I'm absolutely saying here today that AI can do all of that. Used to be a time when you show up in a room, if you were a cerebral person, you were well studied, you were the smartest person in the room. Those days are gone. This AI is the smartest person in the room, right? And it's bringing its knowledge to everyone. Now, in order for you to absorb that knowledge, you have to use these tools. And it's a couple of things I want to leave here before I conclude. The first is that now we're in an era where it's a redefinition of what a job means, what business means, and what purpose means. And many of us, when we put our suit and tie on to go to work, we're a doctor, we put our scrubs on to go to the hospital, we define our existence by our work. The former President Joe Biden would always say the importance of a job to a person, where people needed their job. And many of us, our identity is our job title. What's about to happen, though, is that might be stripped away from us. We might no longer have that job or that job title because of AI. So what then becomes of our purpose? How do we redefine ourselves? I talked last podcast about the ability now for us all to be curious and explore causes, be passionate about something maybe outside of work, something that could materialize into work, into a business idea. I think if you're there in the workforce, be curious about entrepreneurship. Be curious about how you can reinvent yourself using this AI. Have the AI tell you, especially this conversational AI. You got ChatGPT, you got Gemini, you got this thing Claude, you got Copilot. So you got 3 or 4 of these things that I know are adept at giving quote unquote counsel and help you really explore what life after your current job might look like, okay? So it's gonna be a redefining of jobs. Businesses are gonna have to redefine themselves too. And ultimately, what that means for your purpose in life. How do you see yourself navigating the rest of your existence? The second thing I think is key is that we have to all understand that the end of truth is here. Like, you're gonna go to YouTube, you're gonna go to a variety of social media platforms, you're gonna read stuff that might be fake, might be a lie. And I think each of us have to discern or have to understand that. This is where we talk about awareness and ethics. You have to question everything. You can't just watch a video or reel and take it as fact. You got to question everything because AI isn't always telling the truth. And when you're using this conversational AI, it don't necessarily give you options. When you go out to Google or Yahoo, you go in and you type in, you're looking for something, you put it into that search field, it responds with a bunch of different links. And these links are all unrelated to some degree. You then go through those links and figure out what you want to use as your source. What's happening now is your source is ChatGPT. And you have to be careful to not just use what Chat says, what Claude says, what Gemini says, and take it as fact without questioning it. And that's where we think programs like DataGen For Her are so important. Because we not only teach you about these tools, we teach you about how to leverage these tools, and we talk about the ethical implications of these tools. There's a certain thing called human in the loop that we explore in our ethical module that helps you understand the importance of human beings being in the loop. And we can't have a certain segment of us in the loop, right? We have to have us all in the loop in order for this AI to work best for all of us. I think Walaa mentioned the dangers of not having people in the loop. In the loop, it's meaning controlling it. Controlling it means putting data in it. So there's a risk to having half the world, okay, in the loop and the rest of us not. So again, we think DataGen For Her, DataGen Scholar, these programs are going to be key. And we're positioning ourselves to offer these programs across the globe. And the last thing I would say is for us, when we think about our programming and again, why we built the DataGen For Her program, we think about women, we think about mothers. I mean, I have a mom, or sons, you guys got a mom, right? Sister, right? Walaa, you got sisters, you got a mom. We all know moms. But moms, women are decision makers. They're leaders, they're visionaries. They guide families, they shape cultures, and they influence markets. But what we're seeing, even what Harvard is saying, they're oftentimes being left behind in tech, especially with this AI. And so for us, when we think about our work, we just try to imagine what will happen when a mother understands AI. We think she can guide her children better, she can grow in her career, build smarter, and empower stronger communities. That's the mission behind DataGen For Her, to give women knowledge, tools, and support they need to lead in a data-driven world. We ask that you consider joining us. Visit our webpage at datagenforher.com if you want to learn more about the program. You can also learn more about our high school program at datagenscholar.com.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Data, Dollars, and Dynasty. The views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the individual speakers and do not reflect the views and opinions of SaNDAI Global or SaNDAI Cares. Visit us on our website at datadollarsdynasty.com to learn more about our companies and our priorities. Also, follow us on social media at Data Dollars Dynasty. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Thanks again for tuning in. We look forward to catching you on the next episode.